You know, in business, some of the biggest costs are the ones you just don't see coming. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the biggest offenders, software license audits. It's this quiet threat that can literally drain millions from a company's budget, almost without anyone noticing.
Let's start with a number. $30 billion. That's the estimated price tag every single year for one massive, widespread mistake. It's an absolutely staggering figure, and it points to this huge, often invisible financial leak happening inside companies all over the world.
So, what is this colossal mistake? It's not some big, flashy strategic failure or a market crash. Nope. It's about something that sounds way more boring, but is incredibly powerful. Just failing to properly manage and comply with your software license agreements.
All right, so let's dig into this $30 billion blind spot. First things first, we really need to understand the scale of this problem. What exactly are these audits and, how common and costly are they really?
So, what is a software license audit? Well, to put it simply, it's when a software company, say a Microsoft or an Oracle, decides to check your homework. They look at all the software you're actually using and compare it to the licenses you've actually paid for. It's how they protect their income. And for them, it's just a routine part of doing business.
Now, you might be thinking an audit is some rare event, something that only happens to a few unlucky companies. The reality? A full 65% of large companies, that's nearly 2 out of every 3, get hit with at least one of these audits every single year. It's not a question of if, it's pretty much a question of when.
And here's the part that gets me. Even if you've done everything right, even if you were perfectly compliant, an audit is still going to cost you. Just the process itself, pulling the data, dealing with the auditors, all the staff time, it costs, on average, $250,000. That's just the entry fee before a single penalty is even mentioned.
And this is where the risk just goes through the roof. Most companies aren't perfectly compliant. It turns out a staggering 78% of companies that get audited find some kind of compliance problem, and that leads to big financial penalties. The odds are seriously stacked against you. So why is it so darn hard to get this right?
Well, the answer isn't that people are trying to cheat the system. Honestly, most companies are trying to do the right thing. The problem is they're trying to navigate what you can only really describe as a total compliance minefield.
One of the biggest traps, it's modern technology itself. I mean, things like virtualization and the cloud are amazing, right? Your IT team can spin up a new server with a click of a button. But that flexibility makes tracking licenses an absolute nightmare. In fact, more than half of all licensing mistakes happen right here, in these virtual environments. And sometimes it's the simplest misunderstandings that have the biggest price tags. Take the named user license. So many companies think, oh, that just means people who are actively using the software. But the reality? Nope. If a person has an account, even if they haven't logged in for a year, they count. That one little mix-up can mean you're undercounting by 30 or even 40%. Ouch.
The problem goes even deeper, because let's be honest, you can't count what you don't even know you have. And this chart shows you why. In 65% of companies, purchasing is all over the place. Different departments are just buying what they need. Over half are still trying to track all this manually, maybe in a spreadsheet. So is it any surprise that 40% of organizations just flat out admit their software inventory is incomplete? They're basically flying blind. And on top of all that chaos, you have the contracts themselves. I mean, just listen to this. They can be a labyrinth of potentially contradictory requirements. We're talking hundreds of pages of super dense legalese, with changes tacked on over the years. It's no wonder companies get completely lost in there.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty grim, I know, but it's not hopeless, I promise. And this last section, we're going to lay out a clear path forward. This is all about shifting from being reactive and just taking the hits to actually taking control and turning this whole thing into an advantage. This solution really stands on 3 pillars. First, you've got to centralize everything. Create one place that is the single source of truth for all your software. Second, you start doing your own audits. Find and fix your problems before the vendor does it for you. And third, you have to embrace technology. Use the specialized tools that are built to automate all this complex track. Now, auditing yourself doesn't mean you have to do everything all at once. That would be crazy. You have to be smart about it and use a risk-based approach. Like this table shows, for your high-risk vendors, the ones with the super complex contracts or the huge bills, you should probably do a review every quarter. For the medium-risk ones, maybe twice a year is fine. And for the low-risk stuff, once a year is probably enough. This makes it all feel much more manageable. And that third pillar, technology, the return you get on that investment is incredible. Just look at this breakdown. The biggest slice of the pie, a 65% reduction in compliance errors. That's huge. But it also helps you find and stop paying for software you don't even need, cutting overspending by 30%. That is real cash going right back to the bottom line. And this investment pays for itself fast. On average, a proper license management program gives you a full return in just 15 months. Think about that. After a little over a year, all the savings you're making from avoiding penalties and cutting waste, that's pure profit. This isn't just a cost, it's one of the best investments your IT department can make.
All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the key things to remember? 1. Software audits are coming, they're a normal part of business, and they're always expensive. 2. Companies don't fail at this because they're bad, they fail because the whole system is insanely complex. And 3, and this is the most important one, you can get control of this. You just need the right strategy, centralize, self-audit, and get the right tech.
So that leaves us with one final big question you should ask yourself. When you look at your own organization, is your software an unmanaged financial risk just waiting to blow up? Or is it a strategic asset, something that you can control, optimize, and actually use to get ahead? At the end of the day, that choice is up to you.